Hi kids, it's Mrs. Fravel. How are you? Good. Me too. This is all fine still, right? Okay, we are about to begin the next unit in our marine biology class. We're going to talk about the pelagic environment or the open ocean. This is actually technically most of the planet, and it's also one of the environments that we know the least about. So here we go. Today we're going to talk about the abiotic factors in the pelagic ecosystem. There's the bell. Lunch is over. Okay. We're going to talk about the abiotic factors in the pelagic environment today, meaning what parts of the physical environment in the ocean affect the things that can live there. So here we go. Okay, so what is the pelagic zone? What is the pelagic environment, the pelagic ecosystem? What is the pelagic anything? The pelagic ecosystem is technically that pelagic environment that we talked about back in oceanography. The open water column, it extends from the water surface down to the substrate, okay? But it's only the water. It isn't anything that lives on the sessile or the benthic areas under the water. It's just what exists in the water. Okay, so technically, it goes from the shelf break of one continent out, encompasses all of the zones of the ocean in the pelagic environment, and it stops at the other end of the ocean at the next continental shelf break. Okay, so that's the pelagic environment. That is the ocean. It encompasses 330 million cubic miles on the planet. Sounds like an awfully large number, like an inconceivably large number. It's most of the planet. Okay? So what abiotic factors are in play here? Of course, the water. That's all it is. It's water with stuff living in it, right? 352 quintillion gallons. I don't know how many zeros that is. Sounds like a lot of water. And within that, these three specific abiotic factors help determine what can live where. We have the density of the water, we have dissolved gases in the water, and we have sunlight. And before you pause to write all those down, I'm going to go through each one of those individually. Okay? So temperature and density, those go together a little bit. Water density, or how heavy, how dense the water is determined by its salinity and its temperature, and that varies by depth and by latitude where it is on the planet. Okay? So the ocean is layered, like you guys saw in our water lab that we did at the beginning of the year, and the salinity lab where you guys had to actually create layers of water in a beaker, and you guys for the most part did really well on that, but it's not easy. The ocean just does it. Okay? Salinity layers are called the halocline. Temperature layers are called the thermocline. And then they actually combine in the ocean in real life to create layers called the thermohalocline. Okay? And these layers vary by latitude in terms of how deep they are, how thick they go. There's the surface zone. This is generally the thermohalocline layer that's less than 500 meters deep. It's about 2% of the ocean, but it's where most of the organisms in the ocean actually live. This layer is continually mixed by surface motion of winds, waves, and current moving, and it's generally the least dense. It gets mixed the most. Below that we have the thermocline, and this is kind of like a transitional cushiony layer underneath the surface zone. The density starts to increase as the temperature starts to decrease. That's also where we start to see a lot less sunlight, so the temperature goes down. Then we have the pycnocline. After about 1 kilometer down, the density continues to just steadily increase as the depth increases. And then we have the deep ocean. This is where salinity is constant. It's below, it's 1 kilometer and deeper. the water is the coldest, the density is the greatest, and this is most of the ocean. So technically, the deep ocean layer is the largest kind of ecosystem in the world, right? It's most of the ocean's most of the planet. And this is what this looks like if we graph it and do it in 3D. So we have the surface zone, okay? So again, we have depth over here, and then we have latitude here, both north and south. So this little corner represents the equator. And as we go out from the equator, we get a little more deep zone features in the thermohalocline. And then we have that transitional pycnocline, and then we get the surface zone. Okay, and we get the most mixing and the most least dense water at the surface right around the equator. So that was the density. Another abiotic factor is the dissolved gases. And dissolved gases in the water are what organisms use to breathe or respire, and also use to build some of their body tissues and get rid of waste as dissolved gases as well. Nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide are the most abundant dissolved gases in the water. They are in the atmosphere too. These are the same gases that we have up here in the terrestrial world that you breathe. They're just dissolved in water, and they are more sparse. They're not as concentrated as they are in the air. The ocean and the atmosphere do exchange gases, and they keep kind of a balance and keep a mix between those two. And the surface currents and waves and winds help do that. The downwelling pulls more of those dissolved gases down into the water. Oxygen as a gas, this is a gas that is the byproduct of photosynthesis. It's produced in the ocean by macroalgae, microalgae, phytoplankton, and some vascular plants like seagrasses. And then that oxygen is, of course, needed for cellular respiration in all organisms, but especially animals. The mitochondria, right? Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It uses oxygen and sugars to create energy. That's where the oxygen comes from. It's the atmosphere if we're up here, dissolved in the water if you are a water creature. Nitrogen, also a very important substance. It is used by producers. That's the algae, the plants, the kelps, the macroalgae. It's used by producers to lock in the sugars into their tissues after they've produced them in photosynthesis. And then nitrogen is produced by animals as metabolic waste. It's urine. That's what comes out in urine. It's nitrogen. It's a toxic substance to tissues in animal bodies. So it is what our kidneys filter out, or flame cells in invertebrate animals, or metanephridia and nephridia filter that out and get rid of it so that it doesn't harm tissues. And the third gas that is dissolved in higher proportions is carbon dioxide. And this is the bad one. We just finished watching a very good documentary on global climate change and how it's affecting the ocean. That's not just limited to coral reefs, it's limited to the entire ocean. Carbon dioxide is absorbed into the ocean, and it creates what's called carbonic acid, and that lowers the pH in the water, and that makes it hard for plankton, zooplankton, and invertebrates to build their skeletons and build their shells. And there's a video there that I will link below this one that you should go watch, okay? Another abiotic factor affecting the pelagic environment is the lights. We talked about this a little bit in oceanography. This feels like a lot of review from oceanography, so that's good, right? You already know most of this stuff. So we have three major zones of light in the open ocean. We have the euphotic zone. That's where most light penetrates. The sun comes right on down through. This is where it's down to about 80 meters, and this is where 98% of all ocean life lives. That's where phytoplankton, which are algae plankton, can photosynthesize, and they are, again, the base of the food chain. It's also where most of half of your oxygen that you breathe in the air is actually originating. It's in the ocean, in those phytoplankton. And we're going to talk more about them next week And then, so below the euphotic, we have the dysphotic layer. And this is where light starts to scatter. As the sun penetrates the water, it starts to scatter and get dimmer, and not all colors penetrate either. And so this, the dysphotic, there's some light, it's dim, but not enough for photosynthesis, and this is down to about 260 meters. And then after that, it's boy howdy dark. It's wow, it's so dark. No light penetrates from the sun. This is the bathypelagic and abyssopelagic zones. Okay? This is actually most of the ocean. And there are ecosystems down there. There are living creatures down there, and we're going to talk about them when we talk more about the deep ocean. Okay? So again, not all colors penetrate. Get out of the way. There we go. Not all colors penetrate all the way through the water. It depends on their wavelength. So wavelengths, and please note, I am not a physics person. I teach biology for a reason. It's because I can't do math very well. But we interpret different wavelengths of white light as colors. That's how you see colors. Purple is around 400 nanometers in wavelength, and then we go up to red, which is the longest visible light wavelength, which is 700 nanometers. And there is light beyond those two, and we just can't see them. We can't perceive them. UV or ultraviolet light, and then over here we have infrared light, which comes through as heat mostly. So below about 50 meters, or between the surface and 50 meters, we get almost all of we get all the colors of the rainbow. So you can have organisms that when we view them, we see those colors. When we looked at the coral reefs, you can see all those beautiful colors. Once we start to get deeper though, we start to lose the red wavelength. And what that means is that red color is not visible below 50 meters. Something might be colored red, but it's invisible. It's going to look black or gray. And then the deepest parts of the ocean, you really get that strong, constant blue middle wavelength, a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow, but not much. No purples, no reds can be seen down there. Okay? So I have a bonus question for you. Maybe you know more about physics than I do, because I haven't taken it for 30 years. 4 or 5 bonus points on the test for the Pelagic Zone unit, which will be in 2 weeks. Do some research or guess. What color are many animals that inhabit the Mesopelagic Zone down here in the middle and deeper areas of the ocean? What colors are they and why? The why is the important part. Explain the physics to me when I say why. Explain why. Okay? Okay, so get going on that. There's an assignment for it. Oh, but words. All right, last, I think this is the last abiotic factor. Maybe? Pressure. Under pressure. Doon, 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 doon. Doon, 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 doon. How could I not do that right now? At sea level on land, you don't feel like you have any pressure on you, right? Because the air surrounding you is not perceivable to you, but it is exerting pressure on you. It's exerting 14.7 pounds of pressure per square inch on your body. Okay? You just don't feel it because the fluids in your body are acclimated to that pressure and are hydrostatically pressing back against them. Okay, so you're at an equilibrium with the environment that you live in. Underwater, it gets a little different because as you go deeper, the water pressure, the weight of the water increases with depth because you simply have more water pushing on you as you go deeper. It gets heavier, okay? Maybe you've noticed this if you go swimming in a swimming pool and you dive down to the deep end and you go all the way to the bottom. I can touch the bottom and you start to feel that pressure in your ears, or like you have to pop your ears, or if you've ever been diving and you have to clear your ears a lot. This is due to an increase in hydrostatic pressure. More pressure on your tissues, and your tissues are not acclimated to push back against it. However, the animals that live down there are acclimated to that pressure. So they have an increased body pressure, an increased force pushing out back against the water so that they don't collapse under that pressure. Okay? And the increase in depth is it's in what we call atmospheres. Okay? So up here on land, we exist at 1 atmosphere of pressure. That's the 14.7 pounds per square inch. Every 33 feet, or let's just be smart and say 10 meters, because that's way easier math, right? Every 10 meters of depth that you go down, you're going to increase 1 atmospheric pressure on a body. So if you dive to 33 feet, if you dive down to 10 meters, you are now under 2 atmospheres of pressure. Okay? 1 from the surface and 1 more as you went down that 10 meters. If you go down another 10 meters, down 20 meters, you're at 3 atmospheres depth. Okay? So you get 1 additional atmosphere for every 10 meters that you go down. Okay. Animals have different kinds of adaptations for this. Some of them are a little more flexible, like physically flexible. So whales have collapsible rib cages. They have cartilaginous parts in between their ribs, so that as they dive and that pressure increases, their lungs and their rib cage will kind of squish in to deal with that pressure. Okay. Lots of deep sea animals that vertically migrate. Okay, they will have adaptations so that their bodies can adapt to being up in 2 atmospheres and then back down to 4 atmospheres and then back up. Okay, so that's like with the whales. Other animals, you're either at 2 atmospheres, or you can live at 3 atmospheres, or you can live at 4 atmospheres, and that's it. Your body is adapted to that pressure. Okay? And again, if you're adapted to a certain pressure, you generally do not do well if you are suddenly put into a different atmospheric pressure. So y'all know the blobfish, right? They first kind of came on the scene of being known widely after the tsunami in the Pacific Ocean about 20 years ago, 18 years ago. So we pull them up and they have these squishy, blobby faces with these big noses and this sad mouth, and they are just hilariously ugly. They don't look like that in real life. These are deep water mesopelagic fish. They're called a blob sculpin, and this is what they're supposed to look like at pressure. Okay, they're kind of pretty. Okay? And there's another video there on their adaptations. Again, I'm going to link it under this one, so go watch it. All right. Wow, I'm done. Hey, look. Any questions about the abiotic factors out in the open ocean? That was a lot of new vocabulary. That was a lot of new words, but you can do it. Your assignment for today is called How Deep? It is the deep sea scroll, and I will make another video to show you how to do that. The instructions are also written on the assignment page. Okay, all right. Be good, be safe, be careful, be kind, and wear your mask, and talk to you later. Where's my pause button? The pause button. Okay.